Hey all, it's Andy Peliquin, your host here, bringing you villains we love and heroes we hate. Currently, we've got Chastity and Raven joining us. Chastity, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself real fast?
Okay, so I'm Chastity, and I typically write fantasy-based stuff. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, and currently still in North Carolina. I'm currently working on my third novel, and it's also fantasy-based, and that's kind of about it.
Awesome. Raven.
Hi. Well, I'm a Seattle author, and I've got 3 books out, the more recent being Joy to the Worlds, which is speculative fiction for the holidays. It's holiday themed. I focus on science fiction and fantasy. I've got stories and anthologies coming out, and 2 anthologies this year, and then a couple more novels next year. So, busy year.
Awesome. Now, this is completely off the topic, but seeing as weed is legal in Washington, Raven, have you ever written high?
I haven't because I'm actually allergic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sadly.
What are you allergic to?
I do not know what that is.
I think it's coming from Chastity. Oh, well.
Okay. I know that the same thing that I'm allergic to in cigarettes is smoke. So I probably could eat it, but I don't know how deep that allergy runs.
Got it. All right, so as I said, this is villains we love and heroes we hate. For me, I know a good villain always makes a good story. The first one that comes to mind, Darth Vader. Right there, you've got an amazing villain. And in the movies, they don't actually explore just how truly epic Darth Vader is. I don't know, have you guys read the Darth Vader comic books?
I haven't.
I haven't either.
I will have to add that to my long to read list.
Oh, yeah. Marvel's been putting out Darth Vader comic books for about a year and a half now. And there's this one scene where Darth Vader is in a valley and he's surrounded by rebel troops. And they're like, Darth Vader, surrender. And he's like, we have you surrounded. And he's like, no, I'm surrounded by dead men. And he literally destroys every single one of them.
Well,
because he's that powerful in the Force. So that's a villain we love. Now, a hero we hate, Anakin.
Yeah.
In the first movie, he's the little kid, he's fine. But as soon as he gets to a man, unfortunately, there's something about him that everyone just hated.
Well, he's like the teenager from hell.
Aren't all teenagers, though, right?
Yes.
Hopefully there are none watching this, so.
You'll grow out of it, we promise.
Yeah. Or not. You become an adult from hell, either one. Chastity, do you have any villains you love or heroes you hate?
I really love Harley Quinn. She's like my favorite villain. Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy are the 2 that I kind of gravitate more toward as my favorite villain. As far as like heroes that I love to hate, I'm not really keen on like Superman or Batman or Aquaman or like the Human Torch and most of them.
Why?
As far as like the Human Torch goes, it's because of his like personality and thinking that he's all that, and that kind of personality and mindset just really gets under my skin and gets on my nerves.
Interesting. Raven, how about you?
Well, I know that for me, I liked Snape before we knew he wasn't really a villain.
Okay.
Because of the fact that his character, everybody wanted to hate, and everybody did hate, and they thought he was just torturing Harry Potter. And then you find out all along that he's just been this awesome hero. And I think I like the kinds of villains that can go either way.
Yeah.
As far as ones that I love to hate, oh gosh. Geez. I think at this point, I've kind of lost my enthusiasm for Superman. I kind of will agree with Chastity on that one. I think they've just rebooted it so many times, and maybe Spider-Man too. I'm just like, okay, how many times can you tell the same story? I'm done.
That's cool. Nah, I know a lot of people. I know for me, Superman is one of those heroes. You can't not know about Superman. You can't not read him and love him a little bit. But then, yeah, someone who's so overpowered, who is impossible to defeat unless by some cosmic level threat, he is kind of someone you don't necessarily want to get behind. Whereas you have a hero like, let's say, Shang-Chi from Marvel, the Marvel version of Bruce Lee, or Rorschach from The Watchmen, or these heroes that are basically, or even Hawkeye. He's the butt of all the jokes, but he's a human facing gods and aliens and stuff like that. So in a way, that is kind of cool.
Yeah. I kind of felt like that a little bit with your battle to the death.
Okay.
Because your character is this almost godly, invincible thing that cannot be defeated. And my character was more the Hawkeye. So it was. I know what you're saying about there's a draw to the normal human who's surrounded by gods. I mean, Agent Coulson kind of fits into that category too, where you have these people who are badass without the superpowers, and yet they still kick butt.
Yeah, for sure. Although, you mentioned the duel to the death thing. Your character against the Hunter was it was a more or less even match. Whereas I faced the Hunter against, a 3000 AD cyborg, and it was a bloodbath. Or he faced the incarnation of chaos, or a being of pure light, and it was, there was no contest. Chastity, what are your thoughts on this? Do you have any awesome villains that you love from movies, books, anything?
Let's see. As far as like books, I agree with Snape. Even though in the beginning he kind of was a villain, and then we kind of seen him build towards, no, you're not necessarily a villain. So I'd say Snape would kind of be the one that was my favorite villain turned good guy. Let's see. Other favorite villains kind of stick the same with like the Marvel universe is like Mystique and Sabretooth, Deadshot. And probably like the Red Queen from Alice.
Okay, cool. Now, have you guys seen the movie Inglourious Bastards?
No.
That's cool.
On my to-watch list, I swear it is. And it has been for ages, but I'm sure your to-watch list is probably as long as mine.
Yes. You have to watch it, not for the story, but to see the villain. Because the villain in this movie is, it was one of the first Western movies that Christoph Waltz appeared in. He's a German actor, I believe. And he plays this role. In the beginning, he plays this smiling, friendly character, goes to a French farmhouse, compliments the farmer on his daughter's beauty and the quality of the milk produced by his cows. And then he switches to English and says, "You're hiding Jews, tell me where they are, or I'm going to kill your daughters." It's like smiling face the whole time, just the perfect villain. And I think, throughout the movie, he stays that very great villain until one part where you see him snap, and it's just this transformation to total psycho. For me, that movie was one of the best, not for the story or Brad Pitt or any of the other parts, but just to watch him play that villain. That's a villain that I love.
Those are the types of villains that, I agree that I love, are the ones that, play it so well and come off across as being villainous, but yet you don't see them as being villainous until their villainy actually comes out.
Or even despite the fact that they're bad. You can't help but love them because they're so well crafted or so well written. Kind of like Snape. Snape, the whole time you think he's this total ass who's just picking on Harry Potter because he can. And the truth is that he was an antagonist. It was written to be an antagonist, and then the fact that she turned him around to make him a protagonist or as a supporting character, that was just mind-blowing, that particular plot twist.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What about from fantasy novels? Any fantasy novel?
Somebody said something.
That was my husband, he had something come up, so that was actually something totally different.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
It's all right. Gosh, I like a lot of the villains in the Doctor Who universe.
Okay.
As far as things like the Cybermen and the Daleks, and then you have the Master, and you have these characters that, they just, it doesn't matter which Doctor you're on and which year, whether it's, the 1970s Doctor Who, whether it's the 80s, whether it's now, these villains just pop back up and they're part of this continuous timeline. And I guess for me, one of my favorites is the Weeping Angels.
Okay.
Well, if you've not seen Doctor Who, they are basically these angel statues that, if they notice you, will follow you. And when you turn to look at them directly, they freeze. So they look like statues. But if you blink at all, then they can move again, and they touch you, and they send you somewhere else in time.
Wow.
And they're really creepy, because the idea of not being able to blink is really hard. Try to go for 2 minutes and not blink. It doesn't really work really well. So now when I walk by statues, there's this creepy factor of, oh, hell, can I blink around that they're not, but they did such a good job with making them creepy without a million special effects that, yeah, there's that factor.
That's true. I think we got a new participant coming in.
No, that would be my husband this time.
Oh.
And I have my sound on so I can hear you guys, and unfortunately I need to tell him to shut up now.
It's a good thing I'm the husband, so or else I'd be getting told to shut up or something.
I think he thought that it was going to go It's done.
Yeah. What were you saying, Raven?
No, I think he thought it was going to go to my phone, and I forgot I had my Mac hooked to my phone. And
Awesome.
Sorry about that, listeners, for the ping.
We're going to be having plenty of technical difficulties, so this is just the fun of the internet and technology, right? Have any of you guys seen the Supernatural series?
Here and there.
Okay. Did you ever see Crowley the demon?
Yes.
No.
That character, Mark Sheppard does an amazing job of playing that particular character. He's a villain, and you never forget it, because throughout it he does terrible things and he's a total ass about everything, but then he's just so well written and so well acted and so humorous that you can't help but love watching him. At one point, Dean, one of the two brothers, he becomes he almost goes evil or goes dark, and he basically has a road trip montage with Crowley, King of Hell, going on a road trip, going drinking, being all friendly. That was some of the most fun episodes on Supernatural.
Thinking of more villains that I love, David Tennant's villain on Jessica Jones.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God. I mean, I should not like this guy. He is the evil of evil, but yeah. Or Dr. Horrible.
Yes. Dr. Horrible. Well done.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, come on, I'm gonna root for the bad guy. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point, is that neither of them were really the good guy or the bad guy,
Yeah.
But that was great.
Yeah.
And I'd have to say that's actually something that Joss Whedon does really well, is he creates villains that you can't help but love.
Yeah. Even Angel, when he was bad, was awesome. Like, he was killer of puppies and horrible things and torture, and like, oh, you're awesome.
Yeah. So what do you think makes a villain that people love? What elements of villainy, or what goes into making an awesome villain?
Well, go ahead.
I think their twisted sense of humor.
Okay, a sense of humor is essential for a villain.
Yeah. Because a lot of, especially for me, a lot of the villains that I seem to like most of have a dark sense of humor. And so I think for me, every villain that I seem to love has a dark and twisted sense of humor.
Like which ones?
Like Harley Quinn and the Joker.
Okay.
I guess for me, it's they have just that spark of humanity, just enough there somewhere that we can identify with them.
Okay.
Like, you know, when you think about Dr. Horrible, granted he was kind of a wannabe villain, but you know, even things like Tennant's character and Jessica Jones, all he wanted was to be loved.
Right.
And to be loved by somebody who wasn't forced to love him to some degree. So when you think about like the horrific childhood that character had in his backstory, and you think about just any villain, when you get to know their backstory and you get to know them a little bit more, you find that ability to identify with them. And that's what makes you like them or like their roles or even root for them, is that you're hoping for that little spark to get a little bit bigger. So
Right.
I think that draws us in.
Interesting. And yet there's something amazing about a villain who is just like overpowered. You know, the badass villain who is so calm and cool and confident in his badassery. There is something to love about that kind of villain. Kind of like in The Watchmen. Did you guys watch the Watchmen movie?
Yes.
No.
Oh. Well, sorry, Chastity, for the spoilers. The villain, he's going through the whole monologue about how he's doing what's right for the world, and the hero's like, well, I'm going to stop him. He's like, oh, no, I did it 20 minutes ago. He did it before the heroes ever came in. And that is one thing that you never see anywhere. And that just like blew my mind when I saw that.
Yeah. No, I think, you know, you brought up Darth Vader earlier.
Yeah. Fish tank!
Fish tank! Darth Vader had that spark of humanity in him, even though he was killing, you know, masses and masses. But he was also badass enough that we still rooted for him. I mean, like, the first time he uses the Force to do the choking of the character, I guess, what is it, in episode 4, you cheer for that. You're like, kill him. That's awesome. So, yeah, I know what you mean by sometimes you know, sadistic evil.
Yes. There is something to be said for that. I wonder if that makes us bad people, that we have that schadenfreude that we like to see other people. You know, we're rooting for the villains. Do the bad thing!
I think it makes us human.
I agree.
You know, I speaking about Darth Vader, I haven't really been following what's been going on with the Rogue One movie. I think that's coming out later this year, but I believe they're actually bringing Vader in and they're developing him a little bit more of what happened between episode 3 and 4 to kind of give us a better glimpse at the character.
Oh, that sounds really awesome. I haven't been keeping up on it either, but that really has me curious now.
Yeah. Speaking, well, in the Star Wars vein, Kylo Ren. I know he was a very polarizing villain, as it were. Everyone has their theories on, you know, what Han Solo meant when he you know, accepted to die and all of that. But what do you guys think about Kylo Ren, this villain?
He's on the whiny emo spectrum a little bit, but not in the way that Anakin was. Like, Anakin was just annoying about it. Kylo actually kind of made a weird sort of sense. You know, if you think about who his parents were and the world he was growing up in, I don't know, it kind of makes a weird kind of sense to me. And the fact that he chooses to do what he does at the end of that movie, which I won't say in case somebody hasn't seen it. You know, that one person random in the world that hasn't seen it. But no, I mean, I think he works. He's got a dichotomy to him that kind of works.
Yeah. If you, by the way, if you haven't seen Star Wars yet, you deserve to have that scene spoiled.
Okay.
It's been almost a year now.
Yeah,
Really?
I'll agree with that.
Wow. I agree that he plays the part very well. In the same mention as what Raven said, with the whole emo thing, that he actually fits it well, and it doesn't come across as like forced or annoying. Being that I kind of like hung out with that group as a kid, so I kind of like saw them and was part of that group. So to see it done and not done right is annoying for me. So to actually see it done correctly is cool for me.
Awesome. Well, now we've given the villains their due attention. Let's talk heroes. Everyone, there's plenty that we all love to love about a hero. The courage, the nobility, the blah, 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 blah. What makes you hate the hero? Cockiness.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Expound on that one.
So there are these heroes who are overly cocky about their abilities and their, invincibility. So they think that they're all that and that nothing can kill them. And so they go into every single fight thinking, I'm going to come out of here with not a scratch. And those are the heroes that really get on my nerves, because eventually someone's going to be stronger than them and is going to, kill them, and it's not going to matter. So just the really cocky ones just really get on my nerves.
I actually, the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch, I don't know if either of you have heard of or read that one. It's about con artists, thieves in a fantasy world. That's actually a big storyline in the first book, where the main character, Locke Lamora, is so cocky and so self-confident and assured, and then shit happens to him and it just cuts him down to size. And that's actually one of the things that makes you love the character so much, is just seeing him fall so hard. And then, of course, picking himself back up and achieving his small modicum of victory. But yeah, I understand that cockiness thing that can be kind of annoying in some characters. Raven, what about you?
I think
we're totally going to have a drinking game next time. Every time Chastity's fish tank sounds, we're going to have to drink.
I think it's a mixture of my fish tank and also like the sound of my husband, because he's over there making noise too. And so I think it's hearing.
Yeah, such is life.
For me, it's kind of similar to what Chastity said about villains. I like heroes with a sense of humor. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is Malcolm Reynolds from Firefly.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I see heroes like that, they don't have to be 100% good. They can be thieves, they can be scoundrels, but they've got this kind of biting, sarcastic sense of humor. I have a fairly wry sense of humor, so I like seeing that in my heroes.
That's awesome. Evidently, humor is awesome. One thing that really, really, really pisses me off no end is when, this is really the author's fault and not the character's fault, but what can you do? It's when they focus so much on the emotional side of things and not the normal human range of emotions, but like almost delving too deep into it, really dissecting how the person feels so inadequate when compared to their brother, king, mother, father, sister, whatever. When they get into that, oh, poor me, that really drives me nuts.
The psychoanalysis of the character, yeah. So instead of having just a character who has emotions, we get the author must be a shrink. I hate that, because it's the same thing. Whiny.
Shots.
They end up being these whiny brats about it, and it's like, God, get over yourself. You think you're the only person with problems?
Yeah. And I find, unfortunately, a lot of indie authors, and this is no offense to you ladies, but 90% of the time, it's women authors that do this. The male authors, I'm a guy, I know this problem. We really love to focus on the heroism, the swords, the violence, the action, all of that. So our thing is often not delving into that human side of things. Whereas a lot of female authors that I know, not all, great women authors out there, they really get into it. They really delve into the depression that the character's going through the night before their big trial or whatever it is. And it makes it really hard to read, at least for me.
I think some of that also comes from, and again, no offense to the authors that write this genre, but there are a lot of authors out there that if they have a plot line, if it doesn't have romance, they feel like they've done something wrong. So they write these stories that are very romance plotline with just a flash of fantasy or a flash of science fiction so they can categorize it somehow other than romance. And they tend to be the ones that get into the emotional spirals. And it's like, you know, when I'm at conventions and people ask me about my books, you know, they'll often say, is there any romance in this? I'm like, well, there might be some, but it's not like a plot line. It's not the main focus. And they're like, oh. And I always go, you know, there's more in the world than just the emotional spirals and romance. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But you also have to look at, sometimes we want a sword fight. And just because you're writing a woman character doesn't mean that they have to be romance. They can also kick ass.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Chastity, any thoughts?
I'm going off of the whole romance thing or female author thing. I used to work for a bookstore, and I had a woman come in. She wanted a sci-fi novel for her husband, and I picked out one that was wrote by a female. The lady did not agree with that, and her husband apparently hated any novel wrote by a woman. And I just kind of stared at her, and I'm like, did I tell her I am an author or not? And so it was just kind of this weird balance of it's really odd how a lot of female writers are looked at, you know, differently because of different standards, that we should all just write romance because that's, I guess, what every person thinks women should just write.
I think what's kind of sad is that there are so many great female authors out there who don't get into that really emotional side of things. For example, take Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, the Dragonlance novels. That's very heavily written by a woman, and yes, it definitely does delve into the emotions of the characters, but it's not over-dwelling on it. You know, you've got the troubles between the two brothers, the swordsman and the mage, and then there's the romance between Tanis and his characters, and then there's all these things, there's all these emotions at play, but they're not overdone. Or the Wizards of the Coast novels, not Song of Ice and Fire, the Drizzt Do'Urden and Dark Elf novels. They really get into the soul searching this Dark Elf does in his interactions with humans. But it's not this eternal spiral of shame and self-doubt and recrimination and guilt and all of that. So it's really difficult to find that balance, I think, and especially for women authors and male authors who lean towards romance. Those things just really get infused into the writing, and it's hard to separate it out.
It is. And I mean, again, like you said, it's not that you can't have those elements. You know, sometimes you're in the mood for a good romance novel, sure, but just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I have to write that any more than you have to stick to only action because you're a guy. You know, that those are trends and unfortunately stereotypes, and they do influence our heroes and our villains and how we write them, because, you know, if it's a trend that you want your vampires to be sparkly, then guess what happens?
Fuck you! No sparkly vampires.
I prefer my vampires to be scary.
Yeah.
Yes, more The Strain than Twilight.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've never, yeah.
The Strain is Guillermo del Toro, horror vampires at its very best.
Oh.
Okay, we've talked a lot, and unfortunately it's been mostly male heroes and villains. What about a female villain? How many great female villains are there out there and that we can't think of them?
You know, my number one, Maleficent. And that was before they rebooted and did this movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot Maleficent.
From the classic.
From the classic. I mean, oh my God, was she scary as hell when you were a child. And I love it. And that's like, that is a female villain. Absolutely.
What about Madame Mim?
Yeah.
From Sword in the Stone.
Yeah, absolutely. Disney can do villains very well when they want to.
Yes, they've done well. Unfortunately, that hasn't traveled over to the Marvel movies. Marvel's been kind of falling short in that.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
I don't think Marvel's villains are as good. I think DC has them on villains.
Yeah, unfortunately, DC's heroes are kind of meh.
Yeah, their heroes are and their villains are like on par. So.
And then Marvel is the opposite. Marvel's heroes are all awesome, and their villains always fall short.
Yep.
Dude, I was so disappointed in, oh God, I'm blanking on his name because I'm tired. The second Avengers movie.
Ultron,
thank you. Because I was seeing the trailer, and, you know, they sit there and they took the Pinocchio, you know, I've Got No Strings song, and they made it all, you know, just twisted and dark sounding, and it was
so
great.
badass.
I was like, I just so love this villain. And then I was like, what the hell is this? This is not really a good villain. You know?
Yes. Yeah, that was a little bit of a letdown, unfortunately. But it's the Avengers, it's Marvel Comics. You can't help but love it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, we've just got a couple of minutes left. So, ladies, take a moment to tell us about yourselves. Introduce your awesome heroes and awesome villains. Chastity, you're up.
Okay. So in my novel, Wickedly Misunderstood, I have Ember, who is this amazing hero. She goes to this island trying to figure out who she is and ends up getting into this situation much bigger than she is, and actually ends up having to try and help save the world. And in this book, there is a villain called Blade, who is actually, which I'm not going to actually say what he is, so I don't want to give away too much, but who his parent is, who his father is, plays an important role into who he is, and he's not a very good fellow, and he causes a lot of problems.
Are we going to love him as a villain?
Yes.
Awesome.
Everybody who has like read it friend-wise, like, can't help but love him, and they always get mad at me.
What genre is this?
Fantasy.
Hard fantasy or contemporary?
I would say more contemporary.
Okay. Awesome. Raven?
Well, if you go by ravenoak.net on Wednesday or your website, Andy, on Wednesday, we're dueling. And my main character in the Boahim trilogy, the first book's A Maskin's Blood, Adalai is an Amaskin, which is kind of like a holy assassin. And so they go out and basically try to keep the Little Dozen Kingdoms safe from people that are kings and have a lot of power and therefore can, you know, hire cutthroats and all kinds of bad people. So she's a pretty awesome kick-ass heroine, and she goes through quite a bit of her own little coming-of-age journey when she's pitted against the Amaskin's worst enemy, which happens to be her father. So lots of political intrigue, and people tell me it's like if George R.R. Martin wrote Tangled by Disney.
Wow.
So if you want to know more about her, come see the duel on Wednesday on either of our websites. And yeah, you'll book 2 is coming out next year, so you'll get a little bit more of that whole world as well.
Awesome. Well, Chastity and Raven, thank you guys so much for joining me. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
You too.
Bye, world.
And everybody check out the links for these authors below the video. Bye.